shortly after criticizing Vice President Kamala Harris, who had just become candidate Kamala Harris after President Biden stepped aside, I was very quickly placed on this little-known domestic terror watch list called Quiet Skies. There's a long story I can tell you there about what that entailed with surveillance and federal air marshals being tasked with an active targeting package.
If you didn't like the Democratic Party before, you're definitely not going to like it now. Tulsi Gabbard just completely exposed their priorities, how they've been behaving, and why she switched over to the other side. But before we get into that, I want to remind you guys to subscribe to RTM News because it ensures YouTube that you're enjoying these videos, and then in turn, they'll continually show up in your feed, and then they'll push it out to more people. I'm Titus. Let's get into this video.
Welcome back to My View. One of the newest members of our country's national security team, Tulsi Gabbard, has carved probably the most unique path to her current role. From presidential candidate to disillusioned Democrat, and now one of our nation's staunchest defenders during President Trump's second term. She's bold and strong and won't let anything stand in her way. But I'll let her tell you herself.
Well, the official director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, it's sort of amazing. If you look back 5 years ago, you ran for president as a Democrat.
Yeah.
Could you ever have pictured that you would right now be sitting as part of Donald Trump's administration?
It's not something that I pictured back then. And quite frankly, it wasn't something that I pictured even a few months ago. It's been an incredible experience for me to just be a small part of helping President Trump get elected and to now be in a position to help carry out his mandate, to end that weaponization and politicization of our intelligence community, of our law enforcement. It's a privilege.
You are a person who can speak to that to a certain extent. You are also the first female combat veteran to be director of national intelligence. How does your past experience help you in this role, and what are you taking from what you've done in the past and utilizing it now?
First answer is that I want every Democrat or liberal who watches this just to be so grateful that she's the first woman to ever be in this position ever. So I don't want to hear anything about sexist, misogynist Donald Trump, okay? I don't want to hear it because he's doing a lot of first things with women in this administration, in this second term. Just saying.
Shortly after criticizing Vice President Kamala Harris, who had just become candidate Kamala Harris after President Biden stepped aside, I was very quickly placed on this little-known domestic terror watch list called Quiet Skies. There's a long story I can tell you there about what that entailed with surveillance and federal air marshals being tasked with an active targeting package. It really speaks to how these institutions that exist to ensure the safety, security, and freedom of the American people being weaponized against the American people actually creates a greater national security risk. When we, the American people, cannot trust those who have the responsibility to keep us safe.
There is a fine line, though, because I think people wonder, how can you ensure the safety of the American people but also protect their privacy and from government intrusion?
It is a heavy responsibility, and it is the most essential one. For too long, as you know, we've seen people in positions of great power tell us that, oh, well, if we just violate your civil liberties and freedom a little bit, it's okay because we're trying to keep you safe.
And that's the scariest thing that could ever be done, because you have no right to take away my privacy as a human being, as an American, to interfere in my life, to put surveillance on me, or anything of the sort to where you're prying into my personal matters for safety reasons. It's unnecessary. Even with these, we all know this, and it's something it was weird that we've all accepted it. That our phones, they have access to all this information that we've, we signed off on through fine print and stuff, and nobody actually reads all of it. And it's you basically have allowed them to just be all in your business. And they should not have the right. They shouldn't even be able to make a contract where they we have, in order to go forward in using this app, or in order to utilize the functions, you have to accept this and agree to the terms that allow them to pry and sell our information and give up. That's insane. They should not have that right whatsoever. And so I hope that they do something to fix that, because that is something that for every American, no matter what side you are politically, that's insane.
Unfortunately, we've seen this for decades. And the more our freedoms are eroded, the more the foundations of our democracy are eroded. So, you know, a lot of people talk about national security or security threats, but there's two components of that leaders have to really uphold, which is, yes, there's such a thing as a threat to physical security, but the threat to our freedom and our liberty must be balanced right alongside that threat to our physical security.
Just to go back a moment to your previous life as a Democrat, you had a very famous sort of viral moment in a presidential debate against Kamala Harris, where you kind of called her out.
Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California, and she fought to keep cash bail system in place.
The thing is, she didn't even mention this, is what's crazy. She also, there was evidence that she was withholding that would have made an innocent man go free, and she was forced by a judge to present the evidence. Otherwise, the person would be rotting in prison. That's insane. That alone would make me never vote for someone capable of that kind of evil. Wild.
In the worst kind of way.
I think a lot of people look at that moment and they say, is that the moment that Tulsi Gabbard started to maybe change her view on things? Was that part of your political conversion, that moment?
That whole experience of running for president in the Democratic primary in 2020, that really exposed the Democrat Party's focus on things that did not matter to the American people. I go back to 2016 when President Trump was elected, and how very quickly the Democrat Party leadership, the party that I once joined that fought for free speech, that stood up for civil liberties, a party that had many voices who called for peace instead of war, they very quickly flipped the script, because now all they cared about was defeating Donald Trump and silencing those who supported him. And so the erosion, you know, the shift in the Democratic Party ultimately made it so that I had to leave the Democrat Party. It was completely unrecognizable from the party that I had joined over 20 years before.
I think a lot of people watched that whole process and they said, these people have learned nothing. They are ranting and raving out there about transparency, about saving taxpayer dollars, about the American people actually understanding what is going on.
I was with President Trump when I was sworn in the Oval Office, and something that he said that day really struck home, because he talked about needing to have people in our government who care. And so when I asked myself, how is it that the Democrat Party still hasn't heard the voices of the American people who are sick and tired of our taxpayer dollars being wasted?
As it turns out, some of those taxpayer dollars are already being saved under Tulsi's tenure.
Before she says, that right there, that's key, man. What Trump said about having people in government that care is A1, but her communicating to us that the reason why she left, one of the many reasons why she left, was because they did everything within their power just to prevent Donald Trump from getting in office again. They didn't care about the people. They didn't prioritize you as the American people. They used every asset, spent all the billions of dollars they did just to make sure Trump didn't win, and he still did anyway. But outside of him even winning, the fact that your priority wasn't the American people and making us safe and making our lives better, and it was just to beat a man, that's insane. And that's why they lost. So shout out to Tulsi for switching up. We appreciate that. Or they switched up and then she got smart.
So you were confirmed, and then 6 o'clock the next morning, you're on an airplane, and it's been a rapid pace. Has there been anything that surprised you that you didn't expect so far? I mean, is Doge involved in what you're doing?
The ODNI itself is a pretty small organization compared to most other elements. But even in that small organization, getting rid of DEI saved American taxpayers roughly $20 million. Wow. Literally with the
$20 million? $20 million? Getting rid of DEI saved us $20 million? I know y'all ain't mad about Trump being president. I know you're not mad. You're lying if you say you do. You're mad. You're lying.
Stroke of President Trump's pen, just in my organization alone, is a great thing, and we're excited to be able to uncover more.
Yeah, we'll take that for sure.
Now, solidly on President Trump's team, she's making clear common sense is making a comeback.
Joe Biden once said that white supremacy was the single greatest terrorist threat to our homeland. What do you feel is the greatest threat to the American people's safety?
We look at the last 4 years of open borders, where we had tens of millions of people come across our borders, many of whom we don't know who they are or what their intentions are. And very specifically, the threat of radical Islamist terrorism here within our country is higher than it's ever been before, not only because of President Biden's open borders, but because of his and his administration's fear of being called Islamophobes. They took their attention and our resources away from that threat and once again pointed it at our fellow Americans.
What do you feel like whenever history looks back on Tulsi Gabbard as our Director of National Intelligence? What do you hope is written in the history books?
That I will have made an impact on rebuilding the trust that the American people deserve to have in these institutions that exist to serve the people. There are a lot of great Americans. Bringing that focus back as Director of National Intelligence is the heart of the impact that I hope to be able to make.
And I hope you make that impact too, because I do not trust the government. I don't trust anyone. Like I appreciate Donald Trump, the administration, the moves that he's making. I love what's happening. It's what I voted for. It's what I need. Do I trust anybody involved in that? No. I trust them to do what they said they would do to an extent. Of course, that's why I voted for it. But like, it's hard to trust people that, you know, are part of an institution that is not giving. We can get into a whole other thing. But I am grateful for what they're doing, and I hope that she actually makes that mark that she's saying she wants to. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to comment down your thoughts below. I want to know what you guys are thinking, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.